Good evening. Welcome to this evening's Satellite Showtime, brought to you by corporate sponsors Luxor North America, STV and OnSat Magazines, and Caltronics Incorporated. Before we start this evening's program, just one note, and that is next week we will be on a different satellite. We are having to move from Satcom 4 because our transponder 22 has been sold, so we were looking for a new home, and now we've found one on SpaceNet 1. Now on with this evening's Satellite Showtime. The spirit of Satellite Earth Station Day is still alive within a group of Wisconsinites. Satellite Earth Station Day was almost 1 month ago in Washington, D.C., and a good number of these Wisconsinites were there. What they are doing now is inspired partly by that day. They are forming their own group.
And we wanted to try to get the dealers to unite and develop some kind of co-op advertising campaign that we can come out and make people a little more aware of the other side of the story to scrambling. You know, what's up there now, what's not looking at scrambling, radio services, off satellites, some of the other things that have to do with satellite television that the cable operators don't seem to be reporting, which is no surprise.
What you are seeing here is the group's second meeting held in Madison, Wisconsin last week. Manufacturers, dealers, and distributors came to the state's capital despite the threat of bad weather, that is, sleet and snow. They gathered to talk about scrambling, legislation, and to talk about why organizing their group is so important in the light of the cable threat. Cable is a well-organized and well-funded industry.
What we have to do, and what's more important, is create one solid unified body. Space has provided some information, I know, to Joel here already. I encourage every one of you who are not members of Space to join Space today. It's the best investment you can make.
Dealer Frank Wilkie of Invacom continued, referring to his visit in Washington with Senator William Proxmire.
The number of dishes in this state, the amount of dishes produced in this state. You know, we're the dairy capital, but we may become the dish capital. How many jobs are involved in this state? Those numbers surprised him. But the most important thing that I think that surprised him is he turned to his legislative aide and said, "How's the mail running?" And his aide said, "Heavy." And he said, "Against?" And he said, "No, for."
John Call mentioned that a lot of programmers' losses come from within the cable industry and that home satellite TV owners are getting a bum rap.
15 to 20% of people that take cable, a cable franchisee, underreports. And there's much more theft by cable operators themselves on the signal than the million and a half systems that are out there. So that's a point that, you know, they would derive a hell of a lot more money if they were collecting 100% of what they should be.
What can the home satellite industry do when a programmer announces it's going to scramble? Well, Frank Wilkie talked about an ally our industry can turn to.
And how I look at it is the free enterprise system is alive and well, and all those advertisers on ESPN from Budweiser on down are not going to be happy suddenly one day when their market share of advertising based on Nielsen ratings drops 8 million people in one day, that suddenly who have been watching their commercials can no longer see those commercials. Having been in a printing and publishing background, they're going to be drastically concerned on their rates that they're going to be charged by ESPN for advertising. They're going to want their rates reduced because their market share of advertising reduced. We've completely forgot about what the advertiser can do for us on those advertiser support stations. He's a tremendous power on our side.
A total of 38 determined and enthusiastic people came to the home satellite meeting. They didn't let even a wind chill factor of 0 get in their way. They plan to publicize the benefits of satellite TV, to recruit more members, and to present a unified front in the battle for equal access and fair prices. Satellite Showtime will continue with news from STV Magazine right after this break.
The Luxor Luxury Las Vegas Tour Competition is underway. 5 top Luxor dealers and their guests are eligible to enjoy the great 4-day, 3-night luxury stay in Las Vegas, the nation's entertainment capital. The luxury stay is at Caesar's Palace and includes all accommodations, a delicious dinner, cocktail show, champagne breakfast, helicopter, scenic tour over the beautiful Grand Canyon, and then Hoover Dam and much more. Value of this entire luxury stay in Las Vegas is more than $2,000 per couple, and it can be yours. Save those Luxor bonus coupons and follow directions. They'll lead you to this great Luxor Luxury Las Vegas tour.
With more than 100 channels available on your home satellite system, a good programming guide is an absolute necessity. OnSat packs more viewing information in its 88-page weekly format than any other program guide, including daily primetime highlights in a handy grid format, plus complete listings in an easy-to-read rolling log. Daily sports listings by category. The largest alphabetical movie description of any satellite guide. A complete listing of satellite locations and each transponder, and much, much more. All of this can be yours for only $45 per year. That's less than $1 per week. We're so sure you'll like OnSat that we would like to send you a free sample copy. Pick up the telephone and call toll-free now for your free copy of OnSat. Call 1-800-438-2020. That's 1-800-438-2020.
Now, industry news brought to you by STV Magazine. The independent station WOR will scramble, and the Video Cipher 2 descrambler has been chosen for the advertiser-supported station. That is according to Gil Custa, who is marketing director of the company that uplinks WOR, Eastern Microwave. No plans have been announced for the home satellite TV industry. On the same front, Eastern Microwave has reportedly filed a complaint with the FCC for alleged interference with its Showtime feed. There are continuing claims that an individual or individuals have been purposely interfering with the signals of some of the premium programmers that have announced plans to scramble. The United States Football League announced that it plans use of the soon-to-be-launched K2 KU-band satellite. USFL intends to use the 12 gigahertz satellite for distribution of its games to 550 TV stations. Laux Communications of Cincinnati has been bought out by Radiation Systems Incorporated of Sterling, Virginia. RSI designs, markets, and sells high-technology antenna products to the commercial and military markets through two subsidiaries, Universal Antenna and Satcom Technology. Space Counsel Rick Brown was invited by Congressman Robert Kastenmeier of Wisconsin to speak at hearings being held by the Copyright Subcommittee in the House. The purpose of these hearings was to explore what changes in copyright laws are required because of recent changes in technology. Brown appeared before the hearing last week. Representative William Richardson from New Mexico is working on legislation which would require labeling of all home satellite systems, warning consumers of restrictions and requirements associated with the use of this equipment under the Cable Communications Policy Act. It appears that Representative Richardson is simply another pawn in the hands of cable companies. Home satellite users in New Mexico should contact Representative Richardson to register their opposition to such legislation. This home satellite industry news has been brought to you by STV Magazine. Coming up on Satellite Showtime, Pat Porter, Bob Cooper, and Mike Gustafson. In Mike's Tech Tips segment next, he will explain why he's wearing a sports coat. Stay tuned.
Want to know more about satellite TV? Then go to the source for product reviews and how-tos. We're on the road and out in space, and sometimes in very cold places, with features and technical reports. It's all in satellite TV. That's only $19.95 for 12 big issues of STV Magazine. Call now, 1-800-438-2020. and get this LCD calendar clock free with your subscription. That's 12 big issues of STV magazine and the clock for only $19.95. The number again is 1-800-438-2020. 1-800-438-2020. Call now.
Introducing the Coltronics Trans 10X. With the latest in antenna technology, this beautifully designed and crafted 10-foot dish is strong and accurate. Coltronics antenna test results are based on the use of chaparral feed horns, recommended for all Coltronics antennas. The Trans 10X features a thermoset black finish and maximum strength ribs, hub, and rim. Experience the quality yourself at a price you won't believe. The Trans 10X lives up to the Coltronics tradition of quality.
In this evening's Tech Tips segment from Mike Gustafson, he will analyze spectrum analyzers. And a little bit later, he'll explain why he's dressed differently tonight. Here's Mike.
Good evening, and welcome to Satellite Showtime Technical Tips. This time we're going to be talking about spectrum analyzers and what they are and how they can help you. Before I launch into the various analyzers I have lined up here tonight, I think we better probably spend a few minutes explaining what is a spectrum analyzer. Most people that I talk to when we talk about at the new dealers, they're a little unsure as to exactly what it is and how it will help you. So let's just talk about, let's take a look at a couple of different signals. Let's look at this Tektronix spectrum analyzer for a moment. And don't worry about all the knobs and buttons, that's not important. What's important is to look at this particular signal that's there. Now let's pretend for a second this is a window. It's like you're looking out the window of your house. This is a window into the radio frequency world, into RF. And it shows you, starting here and going across, the amplitude versus frequency. In other words, right now we're sitting at, this thing reads out at about 4 megahertz, and at 4 megahertz we have a signal, but at 3, 2, 1 or whatever we don't have any. So it's what we'll call a frequency span versus time. So let's consider that we have all this space and all this space with nothing in it, and as we sweep across, we have no signal, then bang, there's a signal, and back. This is our window into RF. Now let's look at that in the time domain. This is in the frequency domain. Now let's take a look at this in the time domain. Now I've teed the output of a generator up to my oscilloscope, and possibly many of you have seen an oscilloscope and know what it is. This is in the time domain. Well, now here you notice we have one cycle, and this is that same pulse, but now displayed in the time domain. So we start on the left-hand side and we sweep across, but this time instead of one little blip at the given frequency that I showed you before, we actually show one whole complete cycle, 360 degrees of the phase of one cycle. So this is the time domain, and a spectrum analyzer is a frequency domain display. Well, why would we have a spectrum analyzer versus an oscilloscope? Well, first reason is that an oscilloscope can only go so high in frequency. That particular scope is, I believe, a 30 megahertz scope. Typically, conveniently, we can get oscilloscopes that go up to 100 megahertz, sometimes 300 megahertz. But to find an oscilloscope that would go up to 4.2 gigahertz, where our RF spectrum originates, it'd be very expensive if you could find one at all. They have sampling scopes, specialized instruments that could in fact work up there, but that's not something that you and I are going to buy with next week's paycheck anyway. So they developed a device called a spectrum analyzer. So once again, spectrum analyzer is a window into the RF world. It is in the frequency domain. It shows the amplitude of the signal versus frequency. And in this case, each one of these little boxes is 10 dB of signal. The top in this particular case happens to be 10 dBm, so 0, so that's about a -4 dBm, 4 megahertz signal. Okay, so that's what a spectrum analyzer does, and how it would be useful to you, very simply, would be able to, for the first time, you could, using any one of these spectrum analyzers, take a look at the 3.7 to 4.2 gigahertz satellite band. You could actually see the satellite signals, not video as you might see on a television monitor, but see it in its raw form, in its original unprocessed form. Another use for the analyzer would be to look at, say, at your IF frequencies, whether it be 950 to 1450, 440 to 940, or 70 megahertz. You could look at all of the intermediate frequencies after your down conversion and be able to determine what's there, if anything, how it's working, etc. You can use it for troubleshooting the system, for site surveys, and for terrestrial interference suppression. Now, in my opinion, TI, terrestrial interference, is one of the main uses of a spectrum analyzer. Given that we can look at the actual spectrum coming down off the satellite, we also, therefore, can also look at the terrestrial interference. So, let's take a look at a few of the spectrum analyzers I've got right here. Now, in order to do that, to be fair, I promised the friends of mine over at Tektronix that I would give their analyzer a fair shot here, so let me hook it back up and get it running so that we can get it on the air for them. Now, some of these analyzers you're going to like. Some of these analyzers are going to be way beyond your price category, and that's okay. I wanted to show each of them to you in hopes that possibly when you're rich and famous and be able to afford all the wonderful instruments, we can get you something. Okay, there we go. Now we're displaying. Now let's start with the Tektronix 492. Now that's this particular chassis right here, the first one we started with. It's a Tektronix 492 made by, obviously, Tektronix. It retails for $35,000. Now, I'll give you a second to get up off the ground or to stop laughing, as the case may be. It's an analyzer that the STV laboratories purchased. It does a lot of wonderful things, none of which you need, but in a testing laboratory situation, it has lots of features. I'm not going to spend much time on it, obviously not something that you really care about because of its price, but just let me show you. These are raw RF right off the satellite. Each of those signals is a transponder off of SATCOM3. So that's a Tektronix 492. Now let's move up to this next one. This is an Anritsu MS610A. Before I go too much further off the Tektronix, its frequency span is from essentially 1 or 2 kilohertz up to 40 gigahertz. 40 gigahertz. Okay, the Anritsu MS610A costs about $7,000. Well, that's getting a little more realistic. Probably still too much money, but it's still not $35,000. Its frequency span, in other words, what its upper bound is from 10 kilohertz, the lowest frequency, to 2 gigahertz. Well, the first thing you would say is, well, it won't go up to RF to 3.7 to 4.2. Well, we can use a down converter, and in fact, I have a down converter running on it right at the moment. This is what this is all about. I'm inserting some power and feeding it back into my down converter that's laying on the floor. And I can tune around and take a look at the first frequency. There it is. It's at 975 in this case, and the last frequency is up here at 1426, so you can guess I've got a 950 to 1450 down converter on it. And it's a very nice box. It has it's calibrated both in the horizontal and vertical direction, 10 dB per step scales, 1 dB step scales, but still $7,000 too much money. So let's move over to this next one, and now we're starting to, I believe, get into the price category that gets your attention. This is the Avcom PSA 35 spectrum analyzer, and it costs $2,000. That's more better, isn't it? Right, $2,000. At least we're starting to get into something where your master charge might be able to handle it. Once again, it's displaying the 3.742 band. This particular analyzer covers 10 megahertz to 1500 megahertz, and then 3.7 to 4.2, two different bands. Well, that's fine because that means it'll cover your 3.742 for satellite, and it'll cover all your IF bands, whether it be 70 megahertz, 440 to 940, 950 to 1450, whatever. Now, it's a little less calibrated. Obviously, for $2,000, you get a lot less than you would for the $35,000 Tektronix or the $7,000 Anritsu. You determine frequency by sliding this little knob back and forth. And you kind of interpolate what frequency that is. Let's see, we take it down here, and it's about 500 megahertz. Well, I know this down convert sitting on this is, I'm sorry, it's not 500 megahertz, it's 3800. It's on the 4 gigahertz input. 3800 to somewhere around 4100, 4.1 gigahertz. So that's how you determine frequency. Amplitude is calibrated in 10 dB per step. And you have 4 choices, minus 40, minus 20, and 0. So minus 40 is the top scale, minus 50, minus 60. These are about the minus 70 dBm range. Once again, running in RF. You can insert power into either of these output connectors. Right now I have them turned off, and it is battery operated. We can run it on a battery if we needed to. Select frequency. We can take a little bit closer look at some of our carriers by changing the span per division. So right now, each box is 10 megahertz, and if I move to this little spot on the dial, each spot now is 5 megahertz. So we can take a little bit closer look at the particular signal of interest. We could slow the speed down, sweep speed, down to the point where it's so slow you can't really see it. I like to turn it up to where you can just barely, the flicker doesn't get you, but it becomes less calibrated that way. That's true of any analyzer, by the way. And let's move on. The last one we want to talk about, and I did this in order of cost, and not any particular order of preference, although you can imagine I'm very partial to the Tektronix. This is a Lulai PSA-12A spectrum analyzer made by Lulai Telecommunications. Robert Lulai is a designer. It's $800. Now that's getting a lot more better, isn't it? My English teacher will love me for this. It has an input of only 440 to 940. It does not go up to any other IF or into RF. You must use a down converter. It is shipped with a down converter. Actually, it's shipped with a LNB, a California Amplifier LNB. So you actually can hook it up to a satellite system or into a standard gain horn, whatever you wanted. It sweeps the full band. You can see the 3.7 to 4.2 being displayed here. It has a gain, an uncalibrated gain pot, although it's calibrated in the 2 positions, but once again, not all that well calibrated. 5 dB per box in this particular case. We can expand this to take a little bit closer look at it. So there I've gone into the expand mode, and now I can tune across all the transponders and take a look at each one. So if I had terrestrial interference, I would see it sitting on either side of that particular carrier. There's a transponder missing. This, we're looking at SATCOM 3 as an example. That's transponder 5. It's turned off. There's 3 and there's 7. So we can look at each one of them and determine if there's any terrestrial interference carrier. In a future session, I'm going to talk about terrestrial interference. So I'll use this and a couple other analyzers to demonstrate it. And that's the full span for it. We'll go put it back to normal. It's battery operated. In fact, can only operate off its battery. Battery is good for about 20 minutes, and then it has to be recharged. You might think that's too little, but in fact, if you're going from site survey to site survey, it has a battery charger that goes in the car. You actually couple into the cigarette lighter of the car or truck, and it will charge while you're driving, and that will keep you running most of the day with no problem. I haven't had a problem with the 15-minute to 20-minute battery on the particular analyzer, but once again, when you're talking about price per item or feature, you have to give up something at an $800 analyzer. Clearly, these 2 analyzers, the Avcom and the Lulai, are the 2 analyzers we currently would consider in this particular market. So once again, a spectrum analyzer, whether it be the $35,000 Tektronix or the $800 Lulai, is nothing more than a window. It's a frequency domain display that shows you the frequency versus amplitude. It's logarithmic scales, gives you some feeling of what the amplitude of each signal is. Clearly, we could take this and hook it up to any part of the satellite system, assuming the RF, IF compatibility was correct, and look at cable tilt, cable loss, terrestrial interference. We could do site surveys. These are just absolutely invaluable in site surveys. I can't imagine doing a site survey without a spectrum analyzer. Yes, you can take your satellite receiver and hook it up and guess, but really having a spectrum analyzer and a standard gain horn with an LNA or an LNB is really the only way to do it. It's accurate, it's professional, it's what dealers ought to have. And the pricing has gotten down to the point where I think there's really no excuse anymore not to have a spectrum analyzer. Clearly, when we're talking about $35,000 analyzers, dealers aren't going to go out and buy those, but $800 to $2,000, I think, is now in a region where you have to have the test equipment to do the professional job that I'm sure you want to do. So this really comprises most of the analyzers. There's one other analyzer I couldn't get for this show, and that was made by WaveTech. It's about $7,000 also, in the league with the Inritsu. Designed for cable TV use. We can use it in our particular field too, but I wasn't able to secure one of those in time for this broadcast. But in my opinion, I think the two really hot little analyzers today are the Avcom and the Lulai. And if you got a few more bucks, the Inritsu is a lot more calibrated for the extra $5,000 that you get. Avcom, I should also point out, makes a more expensive model. It's a $5,000 model, and it's a lot more calibrated. It's a bench model as opposed to portable. These two are portable, and the Inritsu and the Tektronix are lab models, lab bench models. So I think that takes us almost to the end. I wanted to read one letter I've gotten here from a Ronald Purdue, and he's asking a question about 2-degree spacing on an 8-foot spun aluminum antenna. He has a Genesis 8-foot, and he was wondering if it will operate in the proposed 2-degree satellite spacing. And he was also asking about my 10-foot spun, and can we buy 10-foot spun antennas. My 10-foot spun aluminum antenna was brought out here on a train. It literally was put on a cattle car or something. There was about 35 of them brought here on a train. That's the only way they could be shipped. They couldn't be shipped any other way across country. So clearly 10-foot spun antennas just don't exist anymore unless you pick them up from the old days, which is my antenna was spun in 1963, to give you a date on my analyzer. Will your 8-foot work? Spun aluminum antenna, 8-foot, yes, will probably work just fine in 2-degree spacing. I wouldn't worry about it a bit. I draw a line. I say that if the dish is smaller than 8-foot, you should be concerned. Doesn't mean it won't do it, but you should be concerned. Greater than 8-foot or greater, it's going to work just fine in 2-degree spacing. Now, I may live to eat those words, but that's what you expect, I think, from some of us, to go out on the limb and tell you what our best guess is. And based on testing lots of antennas and testing spun aluminum 8-foot antennas, I can tell you the patterns look good on spun dishes, and they will operate in closer 2-degree satellite spacing environment. So I think that hopefully answers your question, and thank you, Ron, for writing the letter. Well, I think that's about it for this time. If you do have any questions or want to complain or that I didn't talk about your product or whatever, give me a letter in the mail. Don't call me on the phone. The phone's been ringing too much entirely lately. And the address is Post Office Box 20700, San Jose, California 95160. And of course, my name is Mike Gustafson, and I'm the technical editor for STV Magazine and Satellite Retailer magazines. And you might wonder, I'm wearing a coat tonight. Normally out here in sunny California, we don't wear coats, only when we're forced to or we want to go into a fancy restaurant. And as you can see, no tie whatsoever. But one of our erstwhile writers for the magazine was complaining about the fact that we were being a little too casual here. Well, just for good old Bobby Banks, I put on this coat tonight just so he can finally have his way. You won't see it next time. It's just this one time, and I don't own a tie, so I put a tie on. When you come into California the first time, they confiscate all your ties, so I'm sorry, I just don't have any. We can smuggle them in on airplanes, but I don't think that's really what we want to do. I don't like ties anyway. So that's it. Spectrum analyzers, different choices for you. And this is Mike Gustafson. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Mike has received quite a bit of mail, as has Pat Porter. And Pat will be in later on Satellite Showtime. But before that, you'll learn about the Space Dealer Consumer Awareness Program going on right now. And you'll learn more about the Andersons of South Dakota in Coop's TVRO profile. That's next.
Luxor, the intelligent satellite system. The top-of-the-line complete satellite system by Luxor. Space-age technology wrapped in a compact, attractive package. The Luxor 9900 system knows where all the satellites are and all about stereo hi-fi sound. All you need to know is what show that you want to watch. Combine it with the premier quality aluminum mesh antennas, and you have an unbeatable package. The antennas that stay in shape and stay on target. 5-year warranty. UPS shippable. Durable baked-on acrylic low luster finish. the perfect match for the 9900. Luxor, the intelligent satellite system.
I'm Joe Kelch with an announcement for you dealers out there. Would you like a TV commercial produced for you at a cut rate? If so, you can join the Space Dealer Consumer Awareness Program. The purpose is to drive potential Earth Station owners to your store for a demonstration of your equipment. The program will be supported with national and local advertising with your store name listed in all ads. You'll receive the complete dealer kit with point-of-purchase material. The deadline for sign-up is December 2nd. Make checks payable to Space Sweepstakes, and mail to Space at 300 North Washington Street, Alexandria, Virginia, 22314. The phone number for Space is 703-549-6990. If you have any questions, you can also call Dave Vengus at the Litchfield Group. His number is 212-598-0600. You can charge it to your Visa, MasterCharge, or American Express card. The cost is $300 plus $50 per store if you want the TV spot produced for you that you can tag on with your store's name. Radio spots available too. This is the Space Dealer Consumer Awareness Program. If you have questions, you can call Space or Dave Vengus at the numbers listed on the screen. Dave will tell us more about the program later on Satellite Showtime.
Now here's Bob Cooper with Coop's TVRO Profile.
One transistor, one diode, and about 4 other parts. And of course you don't need to clamp anything. Yeah. So this becomes quite a bit simpler in KU. Plus the fact, of course, you have a stronger signal. So you combine this with your rolled up cone of aluminum. That's what the future has. Everybody's going to be able to afford one. All over the world. Provided the signal's there.
His name is Keith Anderson, and he has been changing the way America and the world receives television for more than 30 years now. If you have been with us the past 2 weeks, you are already aware that Keith Anderson is the elder member of the Anderson clan out of Rapid City, South Dakota. And those are the Anderson Scientific Andersons, of course.
You know, if you didn't have anything else to watch, and all you could afford was a $5 antenna, you can buy yourself a 4-foot square piece of aluminum, and that's what you would watch. With a regular receiver, that's the very best you would do. With the ability to optimize the IF for the picture, that's how you would do.
Keith Anderson appears to be driven, perhaps even possessed, by bringing down the cost of satellite TV reception. He may have done more to lower TVRO system costs than any other single person in the industry today, worldwide.
So I've had to go 2 directions now. I continue on my course of trying to build a satellite system that everyone can afford. I'd like to see the dish prices reduced, and the LNA prices have done their own thing, of course, but my objective is to get it down to where it's a worldwide thing, where it benefits the people who aren't buying them as a rich man's toy. Again, my family and operating the manufacturing business, they're more aware of marketing as it is today in this country, where it is somewhat of a toy. And so they have in turn made it a little more complex, and I've had to assist with that. while I continued to make it less and less complex to where we have it down now to where, with excellent pictures, you can put it in your pocket.
Of course, anyone can build cheaply. Madman Earl Muntz, for example, discovered how cheaply television sets could be built in the 50s. His technique became legendary. He directed his engineers to start clipping parts out of existing designs in TV receivers, parts like resistors and capacitors. Keep that up, he said, until the TV set stops working. And then put back the last one you clipped out, and that freezes the design. Well, Keith Anderson is driven by a different master.
I made it cheap and simple. You know, I discovered that there was a very stable oscillator, much more stable than most people realize. It was available out of about 3 components that have less than $3 cost now if you buy them in any sort of volume. And that stable oscillator that would run at the frequency difference between the microwave frequencies and the UHF band, which we had chosen because it was already, all sorts of components were already available at those frequencies, especially the tuner, led me to be able to decrease the cost of block conversion by an order of several magnitudes. I don't want to take credit for block conversion, just cheap block conversion.
Anderson's first satellite receiver in 1981 cost him $115 to build. That was $15 in parts, plus $99.95 for a Hitachi black and white television set. Keith knew he was onto something significant.
My first really good operational satellite receiver was a Hitachi TV set with a modification of the using the tuner. It kind of came together. I discovered that with one transistor I could convert 4 gigahertz down to the UHF band. And so then the first receiver, which the simplest receiver approach I could take at that time was just to use all the existing circuitry, even the power supply and the tuner, out of an electronically tuned Hitachi television set. And all I really added to that, I took the IF filter out to increase the bandwidth, because that was the only real tuning it had in its IF. And then I added an extremely simple detector, which consisted of 4 diodes and a couple tank circuits. And we got limiting free because I disabled the automatic gain control in the Hitachi's IF. So it produced color pictures.
Anderson has innovated several important technology breakthroughs in TVRO receiver design, breakthroughs which have helped him bring the cost of a TVRO receiver way down. Now, one involving a change he created in the TVRO receiver's video detector circuit was recently granted a patent. Those who have lifted this circuit trick from the Anderson receivers will shortly be hearing from Anderson attorneys concerning patent infringement.
The beauty of that chip is, as a quadrature chip, it with one simple tuned circuit, you do obtain your quadrature detection. But pin 2 and pin 12 is exactly what it was on it. And this was the value. This resistor is actually present even at when it's used for FM purposes or FM audio purposes. But it's like maybe on the order of 20K, depending upon the deviation that you're working with. But then for the television purposes, they had like 150 ohm maybe, or on that order, to detect at 70 megahertz. Well, we used that in our first receivers, about our first 50, and I had an inspiration one day that reduced that to a ferrite bead, a single ferrite bead. And what we accomplished at that point was quite a bit more video output, much better linearity, and simplicity of construction.
Keith Anderson was the first to use the 430 to 930 megahertz band for block reception. He was, therefore, the first one to bring the cost of block-down conversion within reach of the average person. And this involved his use of the standard UHF television tuner with some clever Keith Anderson modifications as the heart of the satellite receiver. He is not so sure that the block receiver designers who favor the 950 to 1450 megahertz band have done the most intelligent thing.
I understand that the tuners are being built. Our tuners
Yes.
being built to accommodate the 950 to 1450.
Now
But still, even at this time, 4 years later, they aren't building a wide range of cable-type amplifiers or cable-type devices. So I see nothing wrong with ours. We're operating, the plant down there is, we're within a half a mile of a UHF broadcast that's channel 14, right? It gives us no trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see nothing wrong with using a frequency that is outside of our cable. Mm-hmm. There's another advantage. You're bringing them, if you're bringing it any distance, of course, is the cost factor. You can use a cheaper cable. So I really don't see what all this excitement about 950 to 1450 is about.
One other thing I'd like to add to that, with probably over 25,000 ST1000s out there, we have never had a single complaint of UHF television interference. It doesn't exist since we put the electronics in a metal housing and got that shielding.
I think the real reason that some companies have leaned toward 950 is the fact that the image frequency is displaced further, even on C-band, of course. If you have an LNA which is amplifying 2 gigahertz or 1500 megahertz, and are using 950 as your lowest IF, while 1950 megahertz below may be down quite a bit further than when you're using 460 for your lowest IF. And the reason that, so they can eliminate the necessity of filtering prior to the mixer if they are in fact out of the passband of the LNA in the 950 range. But that filter doesn't,
What does that add to it?
It doesn't add 25 cents to the cost of your board.
Yeah.
So why not do it right rather than...
It doesn't add a nickel.
No, it doesn't. So.
Indeed, why not do it right? Next week, we'll complete our visit with TVRO receiver innovator Keith Anderson, and we'll see firsthand the performance on this TVRO receiver of the future. It actually will fit into your coat pocket with ease and cost far less than any receiver now available. This is Bob Cooper. Good evening from the studios of West Indies Video.
Thank you, Coop. Satellite Showtime will be right back.
The Konix Trans 8, a great antenna. This transparent 8-foot antenna delivers an out-of-this-world picture to you. Not only does it perform, it looks great. A low-luster appeal with a baked acrylic thermoset black finish. The Trans 8 aims to get the best signals. Caltronics antenna test results are based on the use of chaparral feed horns, recommended for all Caltronics antennas. The Trans 8, another quality antenna from the quality people at Caltronics.
Satellite TV Preview is the best thing next to your satellite dish. With all those programs now at your fingertips, you won't want to miss a thing. Satellite Preview lists over 100 transponders in an easy-to-read weekly grid schedule. It has a daily list of movies, specials, and sports, plus a list of sports by event. Call and subscribe now for only $47 for 52 issues and save $31 off the newsstand price. Or call for a free sample copy. Dealers, we also have a special offer for you. Call 800-826-0735. Visa and MasterCard accepted. Satellite TV Preview, the best thing next to television.
Keep those vital satellite components trouble-free with Quick Pro. Protect your LNA motor and actuator from birds and insects. Its flow-through air vents reduce LNA temperature and control moisture. A high-quality soft neoprene cover that works in extreme cold and heat and has the highest infrared, ozone, and ultraviolet ratings. Quick Pro means long life and great protection. To order, call 1-800-821-7384. In Ohio and outside the U.S., call 419-289-2228.
In case you weren't able to catch it last week, tonight we bring to you a report on the new Space Dealer Consumer Awareness Program, narrated by Dave Vengus of the Litchfield Group.
The purpose of this program is very simply to drive potential Earth Station owners into participating space member dealers. What we want to do is create a store traffic that's going to be immediate for you between the months of February and April, of which the contest period will run in all major market media. The purpose of this, as I said, was to generate store traffic and develop high consumer awareness for the benefits of owning an Earth Station. And really to also to sway those prospects who we consider are fence sitters, the ones that are considering purchase but need a little extra push to push them into buying an Earth Station now. So we've developed a program that's national in awareness and also very focused locally on your own participation benefits. It would be in 3 months long and at various spending levels depending upon dealer participation, because it's the dealers who are going to fund this program. And it's important to know that, because at the end of the presentation of the program itself, I'll be appealing to you on what you need to do to join up and start involvement right now.
Dealers who want to sign up for this program can do so until December 2nd.
Now, what is the involvement of the dealer? Well, the dealer first must sign up to participate, and a mailer has gone out to all space member dealers, some 2,800 of you around the country, encouraging you to join up for this program. We're calling it Join the Space Program. And inside this brochure, as you can see, there are all the details of the program, description of the prizes, what the event would be, the kinds of media support that we'll be addressing in the program, in television, print, advertising, and the materials that you'll be receiving for your own in-store point of purchase, as well as local promotional activities. We will be sending you a dealer kit as part of this package, and the dealer kit consists of just about everything you're going to need to make this program work effectively for you on a local basis. There will be procedures guidelines, a step-by-step, day-by-day instructions of what you should do with all the materials available for you to utilize. There will be counter cards for display in your stores where there'll be the entry forms of the contest. There'll be store posters. There'll be ad reprint mailers. There'll be a booklet on why it's important to buy from a space member dealer. There will be ad slicks that you'll be able to utilize on local media like TV Guide, which can be purchased very cost efficiently on a local market basis. And there'll be ad slicks that you can run in your local newspapers. There'll be a series of press releases, all pre-dated and pre-typed out, where you just need to insert your name in it and mail it to your local media. There'll be a television spot where you can add a 5-second dealer tag addressing or directing the consumers to your store locations. There'll also be 2 radio spots with 8-second tag availability. Those will be 60-second spots. There'll be an opening press conference that'll be broadcast nationally, and a closing press conference that'll be broadcast nationally, as well as the drawing, which we intend to broadcast nationally. Now, all of these broadcasts nationally are obviously via satellite and direct to your store locations. And it's important to note that you will have your names listed in all print advertising as it appears in the media on a national basis. Well, how does this contest work? Well, as I said, there'll be an opening press conference. We plan to launch the contest at the end of January, just prior to February 1st starting date. And this would be launched with a press conference which would be broadcast from, say, a central location like the Chamber of Commerce facility in Washington, D.C. And it would be broadcast to all of your store locations. We would give you the instructions and all the details on how to invite the press into your stores so you can have them attend this live broadcast press conference. It also gives you an opportunity to demonstrate to the press in your markets the benefits of owning or using an Earth Station. Many of the press that we talk to around the country have never been exposed to all of the great benefits and the variety of choice and the improved reception that an Earth Station can bring you. So it's an important step in you acquainting the press in your marketplace as to why and what a consumer can expect to achieve from an earth station. Then there will be national advertising that will run in media such as TV Guide, Time, Life, People, some specialty rural publications like Grit Magazine, like Successful Farming, and things of that nature.
More of Satellite Showtime right after this.
In 1981, we set out to build a unique satellite TV magazine. For 5 years, we've covered all the important satellite news, and now bring you over 8,000 hours of satellite viewing each week with the easiest to read grid format. If you own a dish, you need to know, and when you need to know, you need Channel Guide. Only $39 a year. Channel Guide, 800-654-3006. Call now for a free sample.
Welcome to the world of satellite TV opportunities, the marketing techniques magazine for satellite television that reviews the latest technology and introduces you to people you should know.
Satellite TV Opportunities is the marketing techniques magazine for satellite TV dealers. Our single purpose is to help dealers increase their sales and their profits through improved marketing techniques.
Call today for your subscription to success, 1-800-922-2812, Satellite TV Opportunities magazine.
Hi, welcome to this segment of Inside Out with Pat Porter. And of course, I'm Pat Porter with Satellite Showtime. You know, winter's upon us, and there are lots of things that happen during the winter. As you recall from some of my past segments, megahertz, gigahertz don't go with moisture. Well, let me tell you one other thing that doesn't go with moisture, and that's cold weather. Now, the receiver is pretty well protected inside the house. And the component that gets the most abuse is the linear actuator. You know, several years ago, someone said, I don't want to watch just one satellite. I want to move my dish from satellite to satellite. This is kind of a heavy-duty unit here. It's hard to pick up. Let's identify some of the things. Of course, this is a clamp, a fixed-end clamp that attaches it to your dish. And here is a swivel eye that is the other attachment. This should go down here it'll go down here like this. Some people call this a motor drive. Now let me show you, this tube slides in and out of here, and moisture occasionally will get in this tube. Now there's two things that need to happen. First thing we need to do is let that moisture out. And you see, there's been a hole drilled right here. Perry, can you get that? There's a hole right here that lets that moisture out. Another thing that a lot of people don't do, this needs to be mounted upright. The wire needs to come in like this. It needs to be mounted with the motor up, and it keeps all those windings and stuff out of moisture. You see, it's like this, and the moisture is going to kind of run downhill. If we have this hole drilled here, then hopefully some of it will go out. Did you ever wonder what one of these things look like on the inside? I have several occasions. Let's take that off and set it aside. This is a reed switch. And as you can tell, the way you tell a reed switch is because it has two wires. I have another switch that looks very similar called a Hall effect, and it has three wires. And what it does, it takes the pulse that these little old magnets, it changes as the magnets go by. They trip this so it can count. That's all that is a counter. This particular unit is manufactured by Saginaw. If you've ever flown an airplane, and I have an opportunity to fly some now, a lot of airplanes use this to activate the ailerons and control surfaces of airplanes. Some of these were originally designed to reposition hospital beds. You know, you have a hospital bed and you push a button and the head comes up or the foot comes up. There's two of these in there. The way you can tell the hospital bed ones, and you may have some that were adapted, it'll have two trunnions right here They don't need that anymore. Now, one of the worst enemies to this is improper installation and moisture. So what you do, there's no way to keep all of the moisture out very effectively. Of course, Quick Pro has a tube cover and a motor drive cover that does as well as anything. Because if you keep all the moisture out, sometimes you'll have condensation get in. Now, I've kind of taken this loose. It's kind of hard to show you, but there's gears in here where the motor turns this lead screw. And if moisture gets in there and those gears turn, they homogenize the water with the gear lube. Now, if there's water mixed in this gear lube, what happens when it gets to be freezing outside? Right, ice collects and this jams up and will not move. So what do? Thing to do is have your technician come out, take this off, take this out, clean the grease out of that cavity and repack it with fresh grease. Because what will happen if you continue to try to move the dish and it's in a frozen state, as it were, then you're liable to tear up the transformer or burn out the controller and cause a lot more trouble than you have. I think that these units have done a great deal to change the way people view satellite television. Satellite television gives us a choice because it goes from 1, 2, or 3 programs to literally hundreds. And this expands that because it moves the dish from satellite to satellite. And if you don't have one, you might want to think about giving your loved ones a Christmas present of a dish mover. And if you have any questions, write to me, Inside Out, Satellite Showtime, Richland Center, Wisconsin, 53581, and I'll get back to you, or have someone get back to you. And I do appreciate you stopping and being with us tonight and watching this segment of the show. I'm Pat Porter.
Thank you, Pat. Next week, Satellite Showtime will return, but we won't be at the same place. We are moving from Satcom 4 because our transponder, our original transponder 22, was sold. So our new home is SpaceNet 1. You'll see us there next week, 1 hour earlier than usual at 9 p.m. Eastern. It will be a live 2-hour program. See you next week. Good night.